All right, guys, thank you for that update. Right now, we're going to welcome our next live guest. We've got Eric Kulish, our air cargo editor, with our next bout of news out of the air cargo industry. Eric, thank you for joining us this morning. It seems like we've got a lot of announcements coming out of Hawaiian Airlines right now. What can you tell us about their latest partnership?
Yeah, Kayla, good morning. Stunning news on Friday. Hawaiian Airlines, which is a company I barely track, because I think of them mostly as a passenger airline, right? Well, Amazon Air announced that they're going to partner with Hawaiian Airlines, bring them into the fold as one of their contract carriers to help run their dedicated private airline that supports all their fulfillment activities and gets goods to the fulfillment center, so closer to the Prime members, so they can get them out in 1 or 2 days. So it was pretty big news. It's totally interesting that Hawaiian Airlines, which doesn't have freighters to this point, is this passenger airline, will be supplementing Amazon's roster of carriers. Amazon will lease 10 Airbus A330 planes and have them converted from passenger configuration to cargo. These will be the first time that Amazon's fleet has had any Airbus planes. It'll be the first time they've had this size of airplanes. So it'll be the largest plane in their fleet, bigger than their Boeing 767s by a small amount. And what's interesting is that Amazon told me that they are not increasing the size. The plan isn't to increase the size of their fleet, which, by the way, is increasing a lot. And they kind of gave me a figure finally of 110 aircraft in their fleet. So they're growing by, each month and each year by a lot. But these planes are specifically for replacement of older Boeing 767 aircraft that'll come into, as the Airbus come into the fleet over the, late 2023 and into 2024. So they're replacement aircraft, but a fascinating deal on from a lot of aspects.
Fascinating indeed. And when we're looking at this deal, what's the lore between, Hawaiian Airlines and Amazon? What really kind of makes this partnership work?
That's a good question. I mean, it's not the top of mind airline you would think of. They're not a cargo airline, but Amazon's done this already with a couple of passenger airlines in the past. A couple of years ago, they signed a deal with Sun Country, which is a specialty leisure carrier that goes to kind of fun and sun destinations. They are flying now some Boeing 737-800s, standard size planes for Amazon. And then last year, a small airline called Silver Airways also started flying from Amazon's regional hub in Fort Worth to like Wichita and Omaha, Nebraska, using small turboprop planes. So, and so those are the first time those airlines have gotten into freighters and supporting Amazon. So, Hawaiian already operates the A330s from a passenger perspective, so they have experience with that type of aircraft. Their pilots are trained on them, so that's one thing. And Hawaiian's CEO said, we have a excellent track record of completing flights, and our on-time performance is some of the best in the industry. So put that together with the A330 experience. That seems to be some of the reasons for the deal, which will last 8 years at a minimum, with the options to extend.
So, Eric, currently Hawaiian flies mainly from Hawaiian Islands to the West Coast when you're talking about Hawaii to U.S. routes. They do a couple to Texas, they do a couple to Newark into New York area, but a lot of their codeshare partners operate on JetBlue flights when you're talking about within the United States limits. Are we going to be seeing Amazon using only these options just underneath that Hawaiian Air logo, or will they be flying underneath some of their codeshare partners as well inside the U.S.?
Well, you raise an interesting question. Hawaiian Airlines, my first thought when I saw this deal was, wow, finally Amazon, which has been rumored, is getting these bigger planes to run transatlantic flights, or maybe trans-Pacific flights, to get goods from origin, not necessarily to feed the fulfillment centers, but to actually go go to China, go to the manufacturing sources and bring, the trunk legs on trunk legs, bring those goods into their system in the first place. But apparently that's not what's happening. These planes will be operated within the continental U.S. by Hawaiian. They're setting up a new base within the U.S. For maintenance and pilots. So mostly they're just going to be flying those domestic routes between their hubs in other cities. But they will run some flights, apparently, given their location. They'll also use them to start serving the Hawaiian Islands with some bigger aircraft. But no, the code shares wouldn't apply because those are with passenger aircraft, and this deal is strictly with freighters that Amazon, again, is going to lease. And then they're basically going to hand them over to Hawaiian to operate under their, FAA operating certificate and using their expertise as an airline.
And Eric, do you see this as the beginning of a potential trend, or do you think this is just only kind of a move that only Amazon can really make right now?
We've reported and talked about it. There is kind of a trend or a trend led. There's only so many companies that can get into doing this, but as we mentioned, there's a couple airlines doing this with Amazon. In Brazil, there's the Amazon equivalent, Mercado Libre. The e-commerce giant down there has a new deal with Gol, Brazil's largest passenger airline, to fly Boeing 737s within Brazil to move packages around. And I think DHL has some similar arrangements with a charter airline in Latvia or in Europe that also has now a new freighter division, and they're flying some planes. So this kind of a small trend brewing, and it feeds into that bigger trend of some passenger airlines starting up separate freighter divisions to carry more cargo as a separate, dedicated, serious business line.
Really, and Eric, before we let you go, are there any stories that you're going to be watching as the week goes on, or anything that you have in the works?
Yeah, there's some earnings this week. I think Air Canada, UPS, and I'm also working on a story about airport infrastructure. The Air Forwarders Association wants the government to, provide more infrastructure capability for cargo at airports, worried that a lot of the infrastructure money from the new infrastructure bill will go into passenger, upgrades, and cargo will get neglected. So they want to make sure cargo facilities, which need modernization, don't fall behind.
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Always awesome having you on. We'll be sure to check on with you throughout the week. Right now, we're going to go our next hit of today's headlines.